Admiral Kethvar of the Zephyrian fleet watched the tactical display with growing confusion. The human vessel hung in space like a metal mountain, its dark hull reflecting the distant starlight. It was alone, completely, utterly alone in the vast emptiness between worlds. "Scan again," he ordered his sensor officer, his four arms gesturing impatiently. "There must be more ships, hidden behind that asteroid field perhaps, or cloaked." Lieutenant Yixtel's tentacles danced over the sensor controls, her beak clicking nervously. "Negative, Admiral. Long-range scans confirm only one human vessel. No hidden fleet signatures. No cloaked ships detected within 50,000 kilometers." The bridge fell silent except for the soft hum of life support systems. Kethvar's tail twitched, a sign of deep thought among his people. Around him, the crew of the Galactic Alliance flagship exchanged worried glances. This made no sense at all. The human ship was massive, certainly. Nearly 3 kilometers long and half as wide, it dwarfed most vessels in the known galaxy. But it was still just one ship facing the combined might of the Devourers, the mechanical plague that had consumed 17 star systems in the past year. "Communications," Kethvar said finally. "Open a channel to the human vessel." The main screen flickered, then showed the bridge of the human ship. A single figure stood in the center, wearing a simple black uniform with silver trim. The human appeared middle-aged by their species standards, with graying hair and calm blue eyes. What struck Kethvar most was the complete absence of fear in those eyes. "This is Admiral Kethvar of the Galactic Alliance fleet," he began. "Human vessel, you are facing a devourer swarm numbering in the thousands. Our combined fleet of 200 ships barely managed to slow their advance. We strongly advise immediate withdrawal to defensive positions." The human smiled, a strange expression that somehow managed to be both friendly and predatory at once. "Admiral Kethvar, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the Terran vessel Retribution. We appreciate your concern, but we'll be staying." "Captain Chen," Kethvar's voice carried a note of desperation. "You don't understand. The Devourers destroyed the Nexus defense fleet in 4 hours. They tore through the crystalline armada like it was space dust. Your ship, impressive as it is, cannot possibly—" "Admiral," Captain Chen interrupted gently. "We know what we're facing. We've been tracking the Devourers since they first appeared. We've studied their tactics, their weaknesses, their behavioral patterns. This is what we came here to do." Behind Kethvar, his tactical officer spoke up. "Sir, the Devourer swarm has entered the outer system. Estimated arrival at our position in 6 hours." Captain Chen nodded. "Copy that, Admiral. We'll take it from here. I suggest you pull your fleet back to a safe distance. Things are about to get interesting." The transmission ended, leaving Kethvar staring at the blank screen. His bridge crew looked to him for orders, but he found himself at a loss. In his 50 years of military service, he had never encountered anything like this. Humans were known throughout the galaxy as a young, aggressive species. They were also known for their stubborn refusal to accept impossible odds. But this went beyond stubborn into the realm of madness. "Sir," his first officer prompted. "Maintain position," Kethvar decided. "But keep our distance. If the humans want to throw their ship away, we should at least learn something from their sacrifice." Aboard the Retribution, Captain Chen moved through the ship's corridors with purposeful strides. The vessel bustled with activity as the crew made final preparations. Unlike the bridges of most galactic ships, which relied heavily on automated systems and minimal crew, the Retribution's bridge was crowded with humans working at individual stations. Chen paused at the weapons control station, where Commander Jake Morrison was reviewing firing solutions. Morrison was a bear of a man, built like the heavy world colonist he was, with hands that looked more suited to wrestling asteroid mining equipment than operating delicate controls. "Status report, Jake," Chen said. Morrison looked up from his displays, grinning. "All weapons systems green, Captain. The main batteries are charged and ready. The point defense grid is online, and the special package you ordered is locked and loaded." Chen nodded. "How's the crew holding up?" "Eager," Morrison replied without hesitation. "They've been training for this moment for 3 years. Everyone knows what's at stake." Chen moved on to the engineering station, where Chief Engineer Lisa Park was monitoring the ship's massive power systems. Park was small and wiry, the kind of person who could squeeze into the tightest maintenance spaces and emerge hours later with solutions to problems that had stumped entire engineering teams. Power levels? Chen asked. Holding steady at 98%, Park reported. All reactors are running clean and cool. The new fusion cores are performing even better than expected. Whatever you're planning to throw at those machines, Captain, we've got the power for it. As Chen continued her rounds, she reflected on the long journey that had brought them to this moment. Humanity had joined the Galactic Alliance only 20 years ago, making them one of the newest species in the vast interstellar community. Most of the older races viewed humans as barbaric upstarts, too violent and unpredictable to be trusted with serious responsibilities. That attitude had changed somewhat when the Devourers appeared. The mechanical swarm had emerged from the galactic rim, consuming everything in its path. Planets were stripped of resources, entire civilizations were absorbed or destroyed, and fleets that had maintained peace for centuries were swept aside like leaves in a hurricane. The established powers of the galaxy had tried everything. The ethereal communion had attempted to communicate with the machines, believing that all intelligence could be reasoned with. The Devourers had responded by consuming the communion's most sacred worlds. The Hive Collective had tried to overwhelm them with sheer numbers, sending millions of bioships against the mechanical tide. The Devourers had simply adapted and consumed them too. It was then that the Galactic Alliance had turned to the humans, not out of respect, but out of desperation. If the barbaric newcomers wanted to throw themselves against the mechanical plague, the older races would at least allow it. What the galaxy didn't understand was that humans had been preparing for this fight since the moment they learned of the Devourers' existence. While other species had tried to find diplomatic or traditional military solutions, humanity had taken a different approach. They had studied warfare itself. Chen reached the ship's central computer core, where Dr. Amanda Walsh was making final adjustments to the tactical AI systems. Walsh had been instrumental in developing the strategies they would employ against the Devourers, spending countless hours analyzing battle data from every engagement. "How are our computational systems?" Chen asked. "Running at peak efficiency," Walsh replied. "The quantum processors are handling the tactical calculations perfectly. The prediction algorithms are showing a 93% confidence rating for our primary strategy." Chen raised an eyebrow. "Only 93%. Walsh smiled. "The other 7% accounts for the possibility that we're even more effective than our models predict." The captain made her way to the observation deck, where she could see the stars wheeling slowly past as the ship moved to intercept the approaching swarm. In the distance, she could see the lights of the Alliance fleet, maintaining what they believed to be a safe distance. Chen's personal communicator chimed. The voice of her communications officer came through clearly. "Captain, we're receiving transmissions from multiple Alliance vessels. They're asking about our defensive strategy, our backup plans, and our evacuation protocols." "Tell them," Chen said calmly, "that humans don't have evacuation protocols. We have victory protocols." The hours passed quickly as the Retribution moved into position. The ship's sensors tracked the approaching Devourer swarm with mechanical precision. The enemy force was vast, consisting of thousands of individual units ranging from fighter-sized scouts to massive capital ships that could consume entire moons. At the 2-hour mark, the long-range sensors began picking up detailed images of the Devourers themselves. They were not beautiful machines in the way that some artificial intelligences chose to appear. Instead, they were purely functional, designed for one purpose: consumption and replication. Their hulls were covered with various appendages for cutting, drilling, and processing raw materials. They moved with the coordinated precision of a hive mind, each unit perfectly positioned to support the others. Chen stood on her bridge, watching the tactical display as thousands of red dots moved inexorably toward her single ship. Her crew worked at their stations with quiet efficiency, making final preparations for what many in the galaxy believed would be humanity's final gesture of defiance. "Captain," her sensor officer reported, "we're being scanned by multiple Devourer units. They appear to be trying to determine our capabilities." "Let them scan," Chen replied. "I want them to see us coming." The Alliance fleet continued to monitor from their distant position. Aboard the flagship, Admiral Kethvar found himself oddly moved by the sight of the lone human ship facing impossible odds. There was something magnificent about such futile courage, even if it was ultimately meaningless. "Admiral," his communications officer said, "the human ship is broadcasting on all frequencies." Put it on speakers, Kethvar ordered. Captain Chen's voice filled the bridge of the Alliance flagship. To all vessels of the Galactic Alliance, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the Terran vessel Retribution. We want you to know that it has been an honor to serve alongside you in the defense of civilized space. We also want you to understand that what you're about to witness is not humanity's last stand. It's our opening move. The transmission ended, leaving the Alliance bridge in stunned silence. Opening move? What could that possibly mean? With 1 hour remaining until contact, Chen gathered her senior staff for a final briefing. The ship's war room was a circular chamber lined with tactical displays showing every aspect of the approaching battle. The officers who assembled there represented the best of humanity's military tradition, drawn from every corner of Earth's former territories. "Ladies and gentlemen," Chen began, "this is what we've trained for. Every simulation, every war game, every theoretical exercise has led to this moment. The galaxy sees one ship facing an impossible enemy. What they don't see is 3 years of preparation, innovation, and the collective genius of our entire species focused on a single goal." Commander Morrison leaned forward. "The Devourers are expecting conventional tactics. They've adapted to every strategy the other races have tried, but they've never faced anything like what we're bringing to this fight." Chief Engineer Park nodded. "Our power systems are specifically designed to support weapons and strategies that no other species has developed. The reactor configurations alone would be considered impossible by conventional galactic standards." Dr. Walsh activated a holographic display showing the detailed structure of the approaching swarm. "The Devourers operate on predictable algorithms. They've been successful because they can adapt faster than conventional military thinking, but we're not thinking conventionally." Chen stood and walked to the central display. "Remember, our goal isn't just to stop this swarm. Our goal is to send a message to every Devourer unit in the galaxy. We're going to show them that Earth produces a kind of warfare they've never encountered before." The briefing concluded, and the officers returned to their stations. Chen remained in the war room for a few more minutes, studying the tactical displays and running through the battle plan one final time. Everything depended on precise timing and flawless execution. There would be no second chances. With 30 minutes until contact, the Retribution's weapon systems came online. The ship's hull seemed to shimmer as energy fields activated around the main gun batteries. Deep within the vessel, fusion reactors that had been running at standard power levels suddenly surged to full capacity. Aboard the Alliance flagship, sensor operators watched in amazement as energy readings from the human ship spiked far beyond anything they had thought possible. "Admiral," the sensor officer reported, "the human vessel's power output just increased by 800%. Kethvar's tail went rigid with shock. "That's impossible. No ship can sustain that kind of power increase without." His words were cut off as the Retribution's main batteries began to charge. The space around the human ship lit up with energy discharges as massive capacitors drew power from the fusion cores. Even at their distant position, the Alliance ships could detect the electromagnetic disturbance. "By the void," Kethvar whispered, "what kind of weapons are they carrying?" The Devourer swarm detected the energy buildup and began to adjust its formation. The mechanical units spread out, preparing for conventional weapons fire. Their own weapons systems came online, thousands of cutting beams and projectile launchers training on the lone human ship. Chen watched the enemy formation shift on her tactical display. Everything was proceeding according to prediction. The Devourers were reacting exactly as the human tactical computers had calculated they would. "All stations report ready," her first officer announced. "Weapons are locked on target," Morrison added. "Power systems are stable," Park confirmed. "Tactical computers show green across the board," Walsh reported. Chen took her position in the command chair, her hands resting calmly on the armrests. Around her, the bridge crew waited for orders with the quiet confidence that came from absolute faith in their training and their equipment. On the long-range sensors, the first Devourer scouts were now visible as individual contacts. They moved with the fluid precision of a predator, their sensors probing ahead of the main swarm to identify threats and weaknesses. "Range to target?" Chen asked. 15,000 kilometers and closing," her tactical officer replied. The Alliance fleet watched from their position 50,000 kilometers away. every sensor trained on the approaching battle. On a dozen different bridges, military officers from a dozen different species prepared to witness what they believed would be the futile destruction of the human vessel. 10,000 kilometers, the tactical officer reported. Chen's finger moved to the weapon's release control. All batteries prepare to fire. 5,000 kilometers. The lead Devourer units opened fire, sending streams of energy and projectiles toward the human ship. The Retribution's shields flared as they absorbed the incoming fire, but the vessel continued its steady advance. 1,000 kilometers. Chen's voice was calm and steady, as she gave the order that would change the course of galactic history. All batteries fire. The space around the Retribution exploded into brilliant light as every weapon system on the massive human vessel fired simultaneously. But these were not the conventional energy beams or projectile weapons that the galaxy had seen before. What emerged from the human ship defied everything the watching Alliance fleet thought they knew about space combat. From the forward batteries came streams of coherent energy that twisted and bent in impossible ways, following curved trajectories that allowed them to strike targets from unexpected angles. The Devourers had positioned their ships to avoid direct fire, but the human weapons simply went around their defensive formations. Admiral Kethvar watched in stunned silence as his tactical displays struggled to track the weapon signatures. "What in the name of the void are those energy patterns?" he demanded. His science officer, a crystalline being whose species had mastered physics centuries before humans had left their home world, was frantically running calculations. "Admiral, those weapons are manipulating space-time itself. They're creating localized gravitational fields to bend the energy beams. It should be impossible with current technology." The curved energy streams struck the lead Devourer units with devastating effect. Instead of simply punching through armor or overloading shields, the weapons seemed to unravel the molecular structure of the enemy vessels. Metal that had withstood the concentrated fire of entire fleets began to come apart at the atomic level. But that was only the beginning. The Retribution's secondary batteries opened fire, launching what appeared to be simple projectiles. These rounds moved relatively slowly compared to energy weapons, giving the Devourers time to track and attempt to intercept them. The mechanical units fired their point defense systems, confident that they could destroy the incoming projectiles. The rounds exploded when hit by enemy fire, but instead of simply releasing energy, they created expanding fields of distorted space. Any Devourer unit caught in these fields found its own weapons turning against it as the distortion effect reversed the polarity of their energy systems. Captain Chen stood calmly on her bridge, watching the tactical display as her weapons did exactly what 3 years of human ingenuity had designed them to do. "Status report," she called out. "First salvo successful," Commander Morrison reported with barely contained excitement. 27 enemy units destroyed or disabled. The Devourers are attempting to adapt their defensive patterns. "Let them adapt," Chen replied. "Morrison, initiate firing pattern Omega." The Retribution's weapons shifted to a completely different mode of operation. This time, the ship launched a series of small drones that spread out in a complex three-dimensional formation around the battle area. Each drone was no larger than a fighter craft, but they moved with precision that impressed even the watching Alliance forces. The Devourers responded by sending their own fighter units to engage the drones. It seemed like a reasonable tactical decision. Use small, fast units to counter small, fast units. The mechanical fighters swarmed toward the human drones with typical Devourer efficiency. The moment the enemy fighters came within range, the drones activated. Each one projected a different type of field effect. Some created localized time dilation zones that slowed enemy movements to a crawl. Others generated gravity wells that pulled enemy units off course, and still others emitted electromagnetic pulses that scrambled Devourer coordination systems. But the most spectacular effect came when several drones linked together to create what Dr. Walsh had termed a reality anchor. This field established a zone where the normal laws of physics were enforced with absolute rigidity, preventing the Devourers from using their own exotic technologies. Aboard the Alliance flagship, the crew watched in amazement as the human tactics unfolded. "Admiral," the communications officer reported, We're receiving requests from 17 different vessels asking if we know what the humans are doing. Kethvar's 4 arms spread wide in a gesture of bewilderment. Tell them we know as little as they do, and ask our science teams to record everything. If humanity survives this, we're going to want detailed analysis of their methods. The battle continued to evolve as the Devourers attempted to counter the human tactics. The mechanical swarm began to split into smaller groups, trying to avoid the area effect weapons that had devastated their forward units. It was a logical adaptation that had worked against every other species they had faced. The humans had anticipated this response. Captain Chen touched a control on her command chair. Dr. Walsh, implement the scatter protocol. On the Retribution science deck, Dr. Walsh activated a system that had never been tested in actual combat. The ship's main computer, already running at capacity, suddenly linked with quantum processing units that existed in 17 different dimensions simultaneously. The computational power available to the human vessel increased by orders of magnitude. With this enhanced processing capability, the Retribution began to track and target every individual unit in the Devourer swarm simultaneously. The ship's weapons systems, guided by calculations that accounted for every possible evasive maneuver, began firing solutions that would hit their targets regardless of how the enemy moved. The effect was like watching a master chess player who could see 50 moves ahead facing opponents who could only think one move at a time. Every time the Devourers attempted to reposition, human weapons were already waiting for them at their new coordinates. Commander Morrison watched his targeting displays with growing excitement. Captain, we're achieving a 97% hit rate. Enemy units are being eliminated faster than they can adapt. But Chen remained focused on the larger picture. What's the status of the main swarm? The tactical officer checked his displays. The core group is maintaining position at the rear. They appear to be analyzing our attack patterns. Good, Chen said. That's exactly what we want them to do. All units prepare for Phase 2. Phase 2 of the human battle plan involved something that no other species in the galaxy had ever attempted: psychological warfare against machines. The Retribution launched a new type of weapon that the human designers had dubbed logic bombs. These devices didn't cause physical damage. Instead, they transmitted carefully crafted data packages that exploited flaws in the Devourer decision-making algorithms. Each logic bomb presented the mechanical units with scenarios that had no optimal solution according to their programming. A Devourer that tried to process these scenarios would become trapped in recursive loops, unable to function until the contradictory data was purged from its systems. The effect was immediate and devastating. Hundreds of Devourer units simply stopped functioning as their computer brains became overwhelmed trying to resolve impossible logical paradoxes. Aboard the Alliance flagship, the science officer was running continuous scans, trying to understand what was happening to the enemy force. "Admiral," she reported, "the Devourer units are shutting down their cognitive functions. It appears they're being attacked by some form of information warfare." Kethvar's tail twitched rapidly. "Information warfare against machines? How is that possible?" "Unknown, sir, but the humans appear to have found a way to weaponize logic itself." As Phase 2 continued, the remaining functional Devourers began to withdraw from the immediate battle area. They had never encountered anything like the human tactics and needed time to develop countermeasures. This retreat was exactly what Chen had hoped for. "All units implement the pursuit protocol," she ordered. The Retribution began to move forward, chasing the retreating Devourers deeper into the outer system. But this was not a conventional pursuit. As the human ship advanced, it deployed a network of sensor probes that mapped the exact position and status of every enemy unit. These probes transmitted their data back to the ship's quantum computers, which began running predictive models of the entire battle space. The humans weren't just tracking where the Devourers were. They were calculating where they would be, what they would do, and how they would attempt to counter human tactics. Dr. Walsh monitored the incoming data streams from her science station. "Captain, we're getting perfect predictive accuracy out to 47 minutes. The quantum models are mapping the entire enemy decision tree." "Excellent," Chen replied. "Morrison, lock weapons on the predicted coordinates." This was where human warfare doctrine diverged completely from galactic norms. Other species fought battles by reacting to enemy movements. Humans fought battles by controlling enemy movements. They had studied the Devourers so thoroughly that they could force the mechanical units to behave in predictable ways. The retreating Devourers found themselves under constant fire, not from where the human ship was, but from where it would be when their own evasive maneuvers brought them into the predicted firing solutions. They were being hunted by an enemy that seemed to know their every move before they made it. As the pursuit continued, Captain Chen received a transmission from the Alliance fleet. Admiral Kethvar's image appeared on her main screen. Captain Chen, our sensors indicate that you've eliminated over 60% of the Devourer force. Our tactical analysts are struggling to understand your methods. Chen smiled. Admiral, would you like a demonstration of our strategic capabilities? Before Kethvar could respond, Chen turned to her weapons officer. Morrison, target the Devourer command cluster. Use the temporal displacement warheads. Morrison's hands moved over his controls with practiced precision. Temporal displacement warheads armed and ready, Captain. Fire! The Retribution launched 3 projectiles that moved unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Instead of traveling through normal space, they briefly phased into temporal dimensions where the normal rules of causality were suspended. The warheads appeared to arrive at their targets before they had finished being fired. The Devourer command cluster, composed of the largest and most heavily armed units in the swarm, found itself under attack by weapons that struck them before their sensors could detect the launch. The temporal displacement effect meant that the enemy units were destroyed before they could activate their defensive systems. Admiral Kethvar watched his tactical displays in complete bewilderment. According to his sensors, the human weapons had hit their targets several seconds before being fired. "Science officer," he said weakly, "please tell me you have some explanation for what we just witnessed." The crystalline being's usual calm demeanor had been replaced by what could only be described as panic. "Admiral, those weapons violated the fundamental structure of spacetime. The humans appear to have weaponized temporal paradoxes." As the battle continued, it became clear that the Devourers were facing something completely outside their experience. Every adaptation they attempted was countered by human tactics that seemed to operate according to different rules of reality. The mechanical units tried to use their overwhelming numbers to surround the human ship, but the Retribution's point defense systems created overlapping fields of destruction that no enemy unit could penetrate. They attempted to withdraw and regroup, but human predictive targeting meant that retreat was as dangerous as advance. They tried to adapt their programming to counter human tactics, but the logic bombs continued to exploit flaws in their decision-making processes. Captain Chen watched the tactical displays with professional satisfaction. Everything was proceeding according to the battle plan that humanity's greatest military minds had spent 3 years developing. "Status report," she called out. "Enemy force reduced to 38% of original strength," Morrison reported. "Remaining units are showing signs of systemic dysfunction." "Power levels holding steady at 95%, Park added. "All weapon systems operating within normal parameters." "Quantum computers are maintaining predictive accuracy," Walsh confirmed. "We have tactical dominance across all engagement zones." Chen nodded. "Excellent. All units prepare for the final phase. It's time to show the galaxy what human warfare is really about." The final phase of the human attack was the most spectacular yet. The Retribution suddenly stopped its forward advance and hung motionless in space. For a moment, it appeared that the ship was simply waiting for the remaining Devourers to regroup. Then every weapon system on the massive vessel fired simultaneously, but instead of targeting enemy units, the weapons created a complex geometric pattern in the space around the battle area. Energy beams intersected at precise coordinates, projectiles exploded at calculated intervals, and the various field effects combined to form something that defied easy description. The humans had just constructed a 3-dimensional mandala of destruction that encompassed the entire battle space. Every Devourer unit within the pattern found itself trapped in a web of intersecting weapon effects. Those that tried to move forward encountered temporal distortion fields. Those that tried to retreat ran into gravity wells and reality anchors. Those that attempted to fire their weapons found their energy redirected by the curved spacetime distortions. The remaining mechanical units were not just defeated. They were completely helpless, caught in a trap constructed from the fundamental forces of the universe itself. Captain Chen opened a communications channel to the Alliance fleet. Admiral Kethvar, this is Captain Chen. The Devourer threat to this system has been neutralized. We're transmitting detailed tactical data for your analysis. The transmission ended, leaving the Alliance fleet staring at the impossible sight of a single human ship, surrounded by the wreckage of what had been the galaxy's most feared enemy. Admiral Kethvar found his voice after several long moments. "Tactical analysis," he managed to say. His science officer was still running scans, her crystalline form flickering with the effort of processing the data. "Admiral, the humans have just demonstrated mastery of technologies that our species considered theoretical impossibilities. They've weaponized quantum mechanics, temporal distortion, gravitational manipulation, and information theory." "How?" Kethvar asked. "Unknown, sir. Their methods appear to be based on scientific principles that we're only beginning to understand." As the immediate shock of victory began to wear off, the implications of what had just happened started to become clear to everyone involved. The Devourers had been stopped, but more importantly, they had been stopped by methods that would fundamentally change how the galaxy understood warfare itself. The humans had not simply won a battle. They had demonstrated that they operated on a completely different level of military thinking than any other species in known space. The question now was what they would do with that capability. Captain Chen stood on her bridge, looking at the tactical displays that showed the scattered remains of the Devourer swarm. Her crew worked quietly at their stations, already beginning the process of collecting battle data and preparing for the next engagement. Because Chen knew something that the rest of the galaxy was only beginning to suspect, this had not been humanity's greatest effort. It had been a demonstration. A carefully planned show of force designed to announce humanity's arrival as a major power in galactic affairs. The real war was just beginning. 3 days after the Battle of Kepler's Edge, as the galactic media had already begun calling it, the Galactic Alliance Council convened an emergency session. Representatives from 47 different species gathered in the Grand Chamber on Nexus Prime, their various forms of communication creating a cacophony of clicks, hums, telepathic broadcasts, and spoken words. Ambassador Tilara of the Ethereal Communion floated near the center of the chamber, her translucent form shimmering with agitation. As the current council chair, she had the unenviable task of addressing what many were calling the most significant military development in galactic history. "Esteemed colleagues," she began, her voice carrying across the chamber through quantum resonance, "we gather to discuss the implications of humanity's recent military action against the Devourer incursion. Our preliminary analysis raises questions that challenge our understanding of both warfare and technology." In the section reserved for newer species, Ambassador Marcus Stone sat quietly in his human-designed chair. Unlike the floating platforms, energy matrices, and biological pods used by other species, the human furniture was deceptively simple: metal, polymer, and fabric arranged for comfort and function. Stone himself appeared equally understated, wearing a standard diplomatic uniform with no visible signs of the technological revolution his species had just unleashed. The Krillian representative, a massive insected being whose species had dominated galactic warfare for 3 millennia, chittered aggressively. "The humans used weapons that our greatest scientists claim violate fundamental physical laws. How do we know they won't turn these impossible technologies against other Alliance members?" Stone rose slowly from his chair. "May I address the Council's concerns?" Tilara gestured with one of her energy appendages. "The floor recognizes the human representative." "Thank you, Madam Chair." Stone's voice was calm and measured, carrying none of the excitement or triumph that might have been expected from a species that had just achieved such a dramatic victory. "I understand the Council's concerns about our recent military operations. I'm authorized to provide clarification on several key points." The chamber fell silent. Even species that communicated through means other than sound focused their attention on the human diplomat. "First," Stone continued, "the technologies employed by the Terran vessel Retribution are not violations of physical law. They are applications of physical principles that have been thoroughly tested and verified by human scientists over the past decade. The apparent impossibility of our weapons stems from the galaxy's incomplete understanding of quantum mechanics, temporal dynamics, and multidimensional physics. The crystalline representative of the science consortium spoke up, her voice a harmonic resonance. Human stone, our most advanced research teams have studied these fields for millennia. We have found no evidence that the effects we witnessed are possible with current technology. Stone smiled, an expression that the gallery had learned could be either reassuring or deeply unsettling when displayed by humans. With respect, honored representative, the phrase, current technology, is relative. What is current for humanity may be quite advanced compared to galactic standards. The implications of that statement sent ripples of unease through the chamber. The Corvan delegate, whose species had built their reputation on technological superiority, leaned forward aggressively. Are you suggesting that humanity has achieved technological advancement beyond the combined knowledge of species that have been spacefaring for thousands of years? I'm suggesting, Stone replied, that humanity approaches scientific research differently than other galactic species. We have a tendency to question assumptions that others consider fundamental truths. Ambassador Tilara attempted to maintain diplomatic neutrality, but her energy pattern flickered with concern. Human Stone, perhaps you could explain how your species developed these capabilities so quickly. Humanity has been part of the galactic community for only 20 years. Stone walked to the center of the chamber, his movement causing several species' defensive instincts to activate. He seemed oblivious to the tension he was creating. 20 years ago, when humanity first encountered the galactic community, we were indeed primitive by your standards. We had crude fusion technology, basic artificial intelligence, and weapons that relied primarily on kinetic force and chemical reactions. By galactic measures, we were barely worthy of notice. He paused, looking around the chamber at the assembled representatives. But humanity brought something to the galactic community that we've discovered is quite rare, a fundamental dissatisfaction with accepting limitations. The Zephyrian military representative, Admiral Kethvar himself, had been granted special permission to address the council. His four arms gestured with controlled agitation. Human Stone, what we witnessed at Kepler's Edge went beyond simple technological advancement. Your ship displayed capabilities that our best theories claim are impossible. Admiral Kethvar, Stone replied, I was present when your species first demonstrated faster-than-light travel to the early galactic community. I'm told that many civilizations claimed such technology was impossible right up until the moment they witnessed it themselves. Stone activated a small device, projecting a holographic display into the center of the chamber. The image showed a three-dimensional representation of human space, with hundreds of star systems connected by various types of infrastructure. For the past 20 years, while humanity has been learning galactic technology and customs, we have also been applying human problem-solving methods to every scientific challenge we encountered. We didn't simply accept that faster-than-light communication was impossible. We found ways to make it work. We didn't accept that artificial intelligence couldn't be conscious. We created conscious machines. We didn't accept that the devourers were unstoppable. We stopped them. The holographic display shifted, showing human research facilities, universities, and laboratories. Unlike the grand, aesthetically pleasing structures favored by older galactic civilizations, the human installations were clearly designed for maximum efficiency and productivity. The key difference, Stone continued, is that humanity never assumed that current scientific understanding represented the limits of possibility. While other species refined existing technologies, humans questioned the fundamental assumptions underlying those technologies. The representative of the ancient collective, a species so old that they communicated primarily through historical metaphor, spoke for the first time. Young species of Sol, your words carry the weight of paradigm shift. Yet paradigm shifts bring both illumination and shadow. What assurances do you offer that human advancement will benefit the galactic community? Stone's expression grew more serious. Honored Ancient, humanity has no interest in conquering or dominating the galaxy. We are, however, very interested in surviving and protecting our friends and allies. The Devourers represented a threat to all civilized life. We dealt with that threat using the most effective methods at our disposal. The ethereal chair, Tilara, projected a question that bypassed verbal communication entirely, speaking directly to Stone's mind. Human representative, your demonstration of force has created fear among the council members. Many species now wonder if they have invited a predator species into the galactic community. Stone received the telepathic message and responded aloud, ensuring that all representatives could hear his answer. Madam Chair, I understand the concern. Humanity has indeed proven to be a predator species, but we are very selective about our prey. We hunt threats to civilization, dangers to innocent life, and enemies of peace. The Devourers qualified on all three counts. He gestured to his holographic display, which now showed the deployment patterns of human military forces throughout their space. Every human military installation is positioned to defend not just human worlds, but to provide rapid response to threats against any alliance member. We have built our defensive network to protect the entire galactic community. The Krillian representative chittered skeptically. You speak of defense, yet your weapons are clearly designed for offense. No defensive technology needs to manipulate time and space themselves. Stone nodded. An excellent observation. Human military doctrine recognizes that the best defense is often a devastating offense. When faced with an enemy like the Devourers, half measures and gradual escalation only prolong suffering. We prefer to end threats quickly and completely. Admiral Kethvar spoke up again. Human Stone, your ship demonstrated the ability to predict and counter enemy movements with impossible accuracy. This suggests surveillance capabilities that could be used to monitor alliance members without their knowledge. Admiral, Stone replied, our predictive capabilities are based on behavioral analysis and mathematical modeling. We can predict the actions of hostile forces because we study hostility itself. The same methods would be far less effective against peaceful, rational actors whose behavior follows diplomatic and logical patterns. The Science Consortium representative chimed in harmony. This explanation raises additional questions. How can humanity claim to have developed these technologies independently when many of the principles involved were unknown to galactic science? Stone smiled again, this time with what appeared to be genuine warmth. Honored Consortium, I believe the answer lies in a fundamental difference in research methodology. Galactic science tends to build incrementally on established foundations. Human science tends to tear down existing structures and rebuild them from scratch. He activated another function of his holographic projector, showing a time-lapse representation of human technological development over the past 20 years. When we first encountered galactic technology, we didn't simply reverse engineer your devices. We analyzed the underlying principles, identified inefficiencies and limitations, and then developed completely new approaches to achieve the same results. In many cases, our solutions were more effective than the original technologies. The display showed human researchers working alongside AI systems, quantum computers processing vast amounts of data, and experimental facilities where the laws of physics were being tested and refined. The weapons you saw at Kepler's Edge represent the culmination of this research approach. Every system was designed to solve specific problems we identified in conventional warfare. The temporal displacement warheads address the problem of enemy defensive systems. The reality anchors counter exotic technologies. The quantum targeting solutions overcome evasive maneuvers. The Corvan delegate interrupted. You speak as if warfare is a scientific discipline to be perfected rather than a necessary evil to be minimized. Stone's expression grew cold. Honored Corvan, warfare is indeed a scientific discipline, and like any discipline, it can be approached with intelligence and innovation or with tradition and stagnation. Humanity chose innovation because the alternative was extinction. He gestured to the display, which now showed projections of what would have happened if the Devourers had not been stopped. Star system after star system falling to the mechanical plague, billions of lives lost, entire civilizations consumed. The Devourers had adapted to every conventional military strategy in galactic history. They could counter traditional weapons, traditional tactics, and traditional thinking. Stopping them required unconventional solutions. The ancient collective representative spoke again. Young species, your solutions imply mastery of forces that elder civilizations approach with reverence and caution. What wisdom guides your use of such power? Stone paused, considering his answer carefully. Honored ancient human wisdom comes from our history. We are a species that has survived global wars, planetary disasters, and our own worst impulses. We have learned that power without restraint leads to destruction, but restraint without power leads to helplessness. Our goal is to maintain the balance between these extremes. The chamber erupted into various forms of discussion as representatives communicated among their delegations. Some species were clearly impressed by human capabilities, others were concerned about the implications, and a few seemed to be calculating whether humanity represented an opportunity or a threat. Tilara called for order. Human Stone, the Council appreciates your explanations, but many members remain concerned about the implications of human military superiority. What guarantees can you provide that humanity will use these capabilities responsibly? Stone deactivated his holographic display and returned to his position near the human delegation area. Madam Chair, humanity offers the same guarantee that any sovereign species provides. We will act in accordance with our values and interests. Our values include the protection of innocent life and the preservation of civilized society. Our interests include peaceful coexistence with our galactic neighbors. He looked around the chamber, making eye contact with as many representatives as possible. However, I want to be absolutely clear about something. The demonstration at Kepler's Edge was exactly that, a demonstration. What you witnessed was not humanity's maximum military capability. It was a carefully calibrated display designed to stop the Devourer threat while showcasing our ability to contribute to galactic security. The implications of this statement sent another wave of unease through the chamber. If what they had seen was merely a demonstration, what were humanity's actual capabilities? The Zephyrian admiral leaned forward. Human Stone, are you suggesting that your species possesses military capabilities beyond what we witnessed? Stone's answer was simple and terrifying in its implications. Admiral, humanity has been preparing for galactic-scale warfare since the moment we learned that such warfare was possible. The Retribution is one ship from our deep patrol fleet. It is not representative of our primary battle groups. For the first time since the session had begun, the chamber fell into complete silence. Representatives from dozens of species struggled to process the implications of what they had just heard. The Science Consortium representative finally found her harmonic voice. Human Stone, how many ships does humanity possess with capabilities similar to the Retribution? Stone smiled one more time, and this expression contained no warmth at all. That information is classified under human military security protocols. However, I can tell you that humanity has learned from galactic history. We have studied every war, every conflict, and every military disaster in recorded galactic civilization. We have no intention of being unprepared for future threats. As the session continued, it became clear that the galaxy had fundamentally misunderstood humanity's role in the galactic community. They had welcomed what they thought was a young, primitive species that could be guided and controlled by older, wiser civilizations. Instead, they had invited a predator that had spent 20 years studying every aspect of galactic society, technology, and military capability. A predator that had used that knowledge to build military capabilities that surpassed anything in galactic history. The question now was whether the galaxy could adapt to the presence of this new apex predator, or whether the delicate balance of galactic politics would collapse under the weight of humanity's overwhelming military superiority. As Ambassador Stone prepared to address additional questions from the Council, he reflected on the irony of the situation. The galaxy had asked why humans deployed just one ship against the Devourers. They were about to learn that the real question was why humanity had showed such restraint. 2 weeks after the Council session, Admiral Vexthara of the Hegemony War fleet stared at the intelligence reports scattered across her command table. The Hegemony had not been invited to join the Galactic Alliance, and they had watched the human demonstration with very different eyes than the Alliance species. Where the Alliance saw miraculous salvation, the Hegemony saw opportunity. Vexthara was a Korthak, a species that had built their empire through calculated aggression and superior military technology. Her chitinous exoskeleton bore the scars of a dozen successful campaigns, and her 4 yellow eyes had watched the rise and fall of a dozen civilizations. She had never seen a military demonstration as impressive as humanity's battle against the Devourers. She had also never seen a more obvious target. Strategic analysis, she commanded, her mandibles clicking with authority. Her chief intelligence officer, Zector, activated the holographic display system. The hegemony's intelligence-gathering capabilities were legendary throughout their region of space, and they had managed to acquire detailed sensor data from the Kepler's Edge engagement. Admiral, Zector reported, our analysis confirms that the human vessel used exotic technologies that surpass current galactic standards. However, our research teams believe they have identified several potential vulnerabilities. The display showed a technical breakdown of the human ship's performance during the battle. Energy signatures, weapon patterns, defensive systems, and tactical responses were all mapped and analyzed with hegemony precision. The humans demonstrated mastery of temporal manipulation, quantum targeting, and reality distortion technologies, Zector continued. However, all of these systems appear to require massive energy generation. If we can overwhelm their power systems, their exotic weapons become useless. Vexthara studied the data with professional interest. The hegemony had conquered 47 star systems by identifying and exploiting the weaknesses of seemingly superior opponents. Every species, no matter how advanced, had limits that could be discovered and exploited. What do our sources in Alliance space report about human military deployments? She asked. Zector activated another set of displays showing human space and the positions of known human vessels. Intelligence indicates that humanity operates a relatively small fleet compared to established galactic powers. They appear to rely on technological superiority rather than numerical advantage. This was exactly what Vexthara had hoped to hear. The hegemony's greatest strength was their ability to field massive numbers of warships. If humanity had only a few super-advanced vessels, they could be overwhelmed through sheer numerical superiority. Admiral, another officer reported, long-range sensors are detecting movement in human space, multiple vessels departing from their primary shipyards. Vexthara's eyes focused with predatory intensity, numbers and classifications. Inconclusive, Admiral. The human ships are using some form of sensor screening that makes detailed analysis difficult. However, movement patterns suggest they're deploying additional vessels to forward positions. This confirmed Vexthara's suspicions. The humans were expanding their military presence, probably to capitalize on their recent victory. It was a classic move by a species that had achieved technological breakthrough, extend influence while competitors struggled to adapt. Begin Phase 1 of Operation Harvest, Vexthara commanded. I want our forward fleets in position within 72 hours. Operation Harvest was the hegemony's standard conquest protocol for technologically advanced but numerically inferior opponents. The first phase involved positioning overwhelming forces at the edge of enemy space, followed by simultaneous attacks on multiple targets to prevent coordinated defense. The hegemony had refined these tactics over centuries of successful conquest. They would hit human space with enough force to overwhelm even exotic defenses, capture human technology intact, and then reverse engineer whatever made the humans so dangerous. As Vexthara's fleet began moving toward human space, humanity's deep sensor networks detected the approaching threat immediately. The warnings reached Earth's Strategic Defense Command within minutes of the hegemony fleet's departure. General Sarah Ockafer, Supreme Commander of Terran Defense Forces, studied the intelligence reports in the war room deep beneath Geneva. The chamber was a study in understated efficiency, clean lines, advanced holographic displays, and workstations designed for maximum functionality. Unlike the ornate command centers favored by many galactic species, the human facility prioritized effectiveness over aesthetics. Size of the approaching force? Ockafer asked her intelligence chief. Colonel James Park activated the main tactical display. Initial estimates suggest 1,200 heavy warships, supported by approximately 4,000 lighter vessels. Total enemy force approaches 6,000 combat units. The numbers were staggering. The entire human deep patrol fleet consisted of fewer than 200 vessels. By conventional military thinking, the approaching hegemony force represented overwhelming numerical superiority. General Ockafer showed no sign of concern. Time to contact. Current trajectory puts them at the edge of human space in 96 hours, Park replied. However, they're likely to adjust course as they gather more intelligence on our defensive positions. Okafor nodded. Dr. Martinez, what's the status of Project Infinity? Dr. Elena Martinez, Director of Advanced Weapons Research, consulted her data tablet. All systems are operational and ready for deployment. We've been waiting for an opportunity to test the full capabilities under combat conditions. Colonel Chen, Fleet Status. Colonel David Chen, Chief of Fleet Operations and brother to Captain Sarah Chen of the Retribution, activated another display showing the positions of human vessels throughout their space. All units are in position and ready for engagement. The crews have been briefed on the tactical situation. Okafor studied the tactical displays for several minutes, analyzing the approaching threat and available response options. The hegemony had made a fundamental error in their assessment of human capabilities, but she intended to let them discover their mistake through direct experience. "Gentlemen, ladies," she said finally, "the hegemony appears to believe that they can overwhelm humanity through superior numbers. This presents an excellent opportunity to correct their misconceptions about human military doctrine." She walked to the central command console and activated the communication system that connected her to every human military installation in known space. "All commands, this is General Okafor. Operation Thunderstrike is now active. Execute Phase 1 immediately." Across human space, military installations that had been carefully hidden from galactic observation suddenly came online. Shipyards that the galaxy believed were producing civilian vessels revealed their true purpose as massive warships began emerging from concealed construction bays. On Luna, beneath the surface installations that the galaxy knew about, enormous launch chambers opened to reveal ships that dwarfed anything humanity had previously shown. These vessels emerged slowly, their hulls dark and angular, designed not for aesthetic appeal but for maximum combat effectiveness. In the asteroid belt, mining operations that had operated for decades suddenly transformed. Massive weapons platforms that had been disguised as industrial equipment revealed their true nature. Entire asteroids split open to reveal military installations that had been hidden in plain sight. But the most significant development occurred in the outer system, where humanity's true shipbuilding capacity became visible for the first time. What the galaxy had assumed were simple research stations were actually automated manufacturing complexes capable of producing warships at an unprecedented rate. Within 6 hours of General Okafor's command, humanity's visible military presence had increased by a factor of 10. Ships that had been disguised as cargo vessels shed their civilian appearance and revealed advanced weapon systems. Defensive platforms that had been camouflaged as communication relays activated their true capabilities. Admiral Vexthara received the intelligence reports about human military deployment with growing unease. Her sensor officers were reporting massive increases in human fleet strength, but the numbers didn't make sense according to conventional shipbuilding timelines. "Zector," she demanded, "how did the humans build this many ships without our intelligence network detecting the construction?" Her intelligence chief was frantically analyzing the incoming data. "Admiral, our assessment teams believe the humans have been using deceptive deployment strategies. Many of these vessels appear to have been hidden or disguised for extended periods." Vexthara's mandibles clicked with anger. "You're telling me that humanity has been maintaining a hidden fleet for years without anyone in the galaxy detecting it?" "That appears to be the case, Admiral. Moreover, our long-range sensors are detecting unusual energy signatures from the human vessels. They appear to be using the same exotic technologies we witnessed at Kepler's Edge, but on a much larger scale." The tactical display showed the true scope of humanity's military presence for the first time. Instead of facing a small fleet of advanced ships, the hegemony was approaching a military infrastructure that rivaled their own in size and apparently surpassed it in technological sophistication. "Admiral," another officer reported, "we're receiving long-range communications from the human fleet." Vexthara straightened in her command chair, put it on main display. The image that appeared showed the bridge of a human warship that made the Retribution look small by comparison. The figure standing at the center wore the same simple black uniform that humanity seemed to favor, but the rank insignia identified him as a fleet admiral. "I am Admiral Harrison Clark of the Terran Defense Fleet," the the human said calmly. You are approaching human space with a military force that suggests hostile intentions. I am authorized to inform you that continued advance will be interpreted as an act of war. Vexthara activated her own communication system. Human Admiral, this is Admiral Vexthara of the Hegemony War Fleet. We are conducting standard patrol operations in interstellar space. Our intentions are peaceful. Admiral Clark's expression didn't change. Admiral Vexthara, our intelligence services have been monitoring Hegemony military communications for the past 72 hours. We are aware of Operation Harvest and your intentions regarding human space. The casual mention of their classified operation sent shock waves through Vexthara's bridge crew. The humans had been monitoring Hegemony communications, which should have been impossible given the encryption and security protocols involved. Furthermore, Clark continued, I want to ensure that you understand the situation you're entering. The vessel that engaged the Devourers at Kepler's Edge was operating under significant tactical restrictions designed to minimize collateral damage to Alliance observers. No such restrictions apply to the defense of human space. Vexthara felt the first stirrings of genuine concern. Human Admiral, you are outnumbered 6-1. Surely you can see the futility of resistance against overwhelming numerical superiority. Clark smiled, an expression that Vexthara was beginning to understand could be deeply unsettling when displayed by humans. Admiral, humanity has been studying galactic military history since we joined the community 20 years ago. We've analyzed every major battle, every tactical innovation, and every strategic development in recorded galactic civilization. He gestured to something off-screen, and the display shifted to show a tactical analysis of famous galactic battles. Do you know what we discovered? Every major military power in galactic history has fallen to the same fundamental error, assuming that conventional thinking could counter unconventional threats. The display showed the defeats of legendary galactic empires, each one overwhelmed by enemies that used tactics or technologies outside established military doctrine. The Eternal Empire fell to bioweapons they couldn't counter. The Crystal Hegemony was destroyed by enemies that operated outside normal space. The Machine Collective was defeated by opponents who used chaos to counter their perfect order. In every case, conventional military superiority was useless against truly innovative opposition. Vexthara was beginning to understand that she might have seriously underestimated the human threat. What are you suggesting, Human Admiral? I'm suggesting that you consider whether the Hegemony wants to become another historical example of conventional thinking failing against human innovation, Clark replied. I'm also suggesting that you carefully consider the tactical implications of your current position. The communication ended, leaving Vexthara staring at a blank screen. Her tactical officers were already running analysis of their current position, and what they found was deeply disturbing. Admiral, Zector reported, long-range sensors are detecting anomalous readings throughout the local space around our fleet. What kind of anomalous readings? Unknown, Admiral. The signatures don't match any known technology, but they appear to be artificial in origin. It's as if the space around our fleet has been modified somehow. Vexthara felt the first chill of real fear. If the humans could manipulate space itself, then conventional military tactics might indeed be useless. All ships maximum alert status, she ordered. Prepare for possible engagement with exotic weapon systems. As the Hegemony fleet continued toward human space, Admiral Clark stood on his bridge watching the tactical displays with professional interest. Project Infinity had been humanity's greatest military research effort, designed to address the fundamental challenge of defending human space against overwhelming numerical superiority. The solution was elegantly simple. If you couldn't match enemy numbers, you changed the rules of engagement entirely. Status report, Clark requested. All Infinity platforms are online and ready, his tactical officer reported. Space-time modifications are in place throughout the engagement zone. Enemy fleet composition. Standard Hegemony configuration. Heavy reliance on energy weapons and kinetic projectiles. No apparent exotic technologies. Clark nodded. The Hegemony was about to learn why humanity had spent 20 years studying galactic military history. They were also about to discover why humans had never been particularly impressed by numerical superiority. All units, implement Engagement Protocol 7. Let's show our guests what human space defense really looks like. The first indication that something had gone catastrophically wrong came when Admiral Vexthara's flagship suddenly found itself facing 17 different directions simultaneously. The bridge crew stared in horror at their navigation displays as the ship's sensors reported impossible readings. According to their instruments, they were approaching human space from the north, south, east, west, and 13 other directions that shouldn't exist in normal three-dimensional space. Navigation error, Vexthara commanded. Recalibrate all systems immediately. Her navigation officer's voice carried a note of panic. Admiral, systems are calibrated correctly. We appear to be existing in 17 different spatial orientations at the same time. Before Vexthara could process this information, her tactical officer added another disturbing report. Admiral, enemy contacts detected. Multiple human vessels surrounding our position. The main display activated, showing the space around the hegemony fleet. What Vexthara saw defied every principle of military logistics she had ever learned. Human ships were approaching from impossible directions, appearing to occupy the same coordinates as her own vessels while somehow remaining separate from them. How many human ships? She asked. Unknown, Admiral. Our sensors detect between 12 and 12,000 enemy vessels, depending on which dimensional perspective we're scanning from. Admiral Clark's image appeared on the communication screen, still displaying that unsettling human smile. Admiral Vexthara, welcome to human space. I trust you're finding our defensive arrangements educational. Vexthara tried to maintain her composure despite the impossible situation her fleet faced. What have you done to local space? Project Infinity, Clark explained calmly. Humanity discovered that the three-dimensional thinking that dominates galactic military doctrine is unnecessarily limiting. We've modified the local space-time structure to operate in 17 dimensions simultaneously. The implications hit Vexthara like a physical blow. If the humans could manipulate dimensional space, then every conventional military tactic in galactic history was obsolete. Your fleet is currently existing in 17 parallel dimensional states, Clark continued. From our perspective, we can engage you from any or all of those dimensions simultaneously. From your perspective, you're facing an enemy force of unknown size operating according to physics that your equipment can't properly analyze. Vexthara looked around her bridge at officers who were struggling to understand sensor readings that violated their understanding of reality. This is impossible. No species has ever achieved dimensional manipulation on this scale. No galactic species, Clark corrected. Humanity approaches problems differently. When we encountered the limitations of three-dimensional warfare, we simply stopped accepting those limitations. The human admiral gestured to something off-screen, and suddenly the space around Vexthara's flagship filled with human warships. They didn't arrive through normal space travel. They simply became visible as if they had always been there. But these weren't just ships. Each human vessel appeared to exist in multiple states simultaneously, their hulls shifting between different dimensional configurations. Some appeared solid and normal, others seemed to be constructed from folded space itself, and still others looked like they were made of crystallized time. Admiral Vexthara, Clark said, humanity has been preparing for galactic-scale warfare since the day we learned such warfare was possible. We studied every battle, every tactic, and every technology used by galactic civilizations over the past 10,000 years. Do you know what we concluded? Vexthara couldn't find her voice to respond. We concluded that galactic military thinking is fundamentally conservative. Every species fights the previous war using established technologies and proven tactics. But humanity specializes in fighting wars that have never been fought before. The human ships began to move, but their movement defied conventional understanding. Instead of traveling through space, they appeared to be manipulating space itself to bring their weapons into optimal positions. Your fleet represents the pinnacle of conventional galactic military power, Clark observed. Thousands of ships using proven technologies and time-tested tactics. Under normal circumstances, such a force would be nearly unstoppable. Admiral Clark's expression grew more serious. However, These are not normal circumstances. You are operating in human-controlled dimensional space, facing human weapons that exist outside conventional reality, using tactics that your computers cannot predict or counter. Vexthara finally found her voice. What do you want? We want you to understand the new reality of galactic politics, Clark replied. Humanity is not the primitive newcomer that other species believe us to be. We are not seeking to conquer the galaxy or dominate other civilizations. But we will defend ourselves and our allies with capabilities that transcend conventional military thinking. The human ships suddenly opened fire, but their weapons were unlike anything in galactic military history. Instead of energy beams or projectiles, they launched concentrated distortions in the fabric of space-time itself. These distortions moved toward the hegemony fleet at speeds that made light look stationary. When the distortions reached the hegemony ships, they didn't explode or penetrate armor. Instead, they began rewriting the fundamental properties of matter itself. Hull plating that had been designed to withstand the most powerful conventional weapons simply ceased to exist, not destroyed, but edited out of reality at the quantum level. Defensive fire, Vexthara commanded desperately. Her fleet's weapon systems activated, sending streams of energy and clouds of projectiles toward the human ships. But the human vessels existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, and conventional weapons could only affect them in three-dimensional space. The hegemony's most powerful weapons passed harmlessly through their targets, unable to interact with matter that existed partially outside normal reality. Admiral Vexthara, Clark's voice carried a note of patience that was somehow more terrifying than anger would have been. Your weapons are designed to function in conventional spacetime. They cannot affect targets that exist in modified dimensional frameworks. More human weapons fired, these ones designed to demonstrate rather than destroy. Hegemony ships found their control systems rewritten by quantum viruses that existed in 11 dimensions simultaneously. Weapons that had been pointing at human targets suddenly realigned themselves to target other hegemony vessels. This is a demonstration, Clark explained. If we intended to destroy your fleet, we would employ weapons that edit your ships out of existence entirely. Instead, we're showing you that your conventional military capabilities cannot function effectively in human-controlled space. Vexthara watched her tactical displays as her fleet disintegrated around her. Ships that had been pride of the hegemony military were being systematically neutralized by weapons that her officers couldn't understand, much less counter. Surrender, she said quietly. Admiral, her first officer asked. Signal General surrender to the human fleet, Vexthara ordered. All ships are to power down weapons and await instructions. The transmission went out across the hegemony fleet, and within minutes the space around human territory fell silent, except for the humming of human vessels that continued to exist in dimensions that conventional sensors couldn't properly detect. Clark's image reappeared on Vexthara's main screen. Admiral, your surrender is acknowledged. I'm transmitting coordinates where your fleet will be escorted for processing. You will be returned to hegemony space with a message for your leadership. What message? Vexthara asked. That humanity is no longer a species that can be conquered through conventional means. Any future attempts at aggression against human interests will be met with responses that transcend galactic understanding of warfare itself. As the defeated hegemony fleet was escorted away from human space, news of the engagement spread throughout the galaxy with unprecedented speed. Within hours, every major civilization had received detailed reports of humanity's defensive capabilities. The reports were met with reactions ranging from awe to terror. Species that had considered themselves major galactic powers suddenly realized that they were facing a civilization that operated on principles beyond their understanding. On Nexus Prime, the Galactic Alliance Council convened another emergency session. The chamber buzzed with various forms of communication as representatives struggled to comprehend the implications of what had just occurred. Ambassador T. Lyra of the Ethereal Communion attempted to maintain order, but the usual diplomatic protocols seemed inadequate for addressing the current situation. Esteemed colleagues, she began, we have received confirmed reports that humanity has successfully defended against a hegemony invasion force using technologies that appear to operate outside conventional physical law. Ambassador Stone rose from his human-designed chair, his appearance as calm and understated as ever. "Madam Chair, I believe there may be some confusion about what occurred at our border." The chamber fell silent, every representative focusing their attention on the human diplomat. The engagement with the hegemony fleet was not a military victory in the conventional sense, Stone continued. It was an educational demonstration designed to clarify humanity's position within the galactic community. He activated his holographic projector, displaying a simple star map showing human space and its neighbors. For 20 years, humanity has been learning from the galactic community. We've studied your technologies, your cultures, your histories, and your military capabilities. We've been excellent students. The display shifted, showing human research facilities, universities, and development centers throughout their space. But humanity has also been teaching. We've been developing technologies, strategies, and capabilities that we hope will benefit the entire galactic community. The Science Consortium representative chimed her harmonic question. "Human Stone, are you suggesting that your species' military capabilities are intended to benefit other civilizations?" Stone smiled. "Honored Consortium, humanity's military capabilities are intended to ensure that civilized species can continue to exist and develop without fear of extinction-level threats. The Devourers represented such a threat. The hegemony's invasion fleet represented such a threat." He gestured to his display, which now showed the current positions of human military forces. Every human military installation, every human warship, and every human defensive system is positioned to protect not just human interests, but the interests of any species that values peace, progress, and mutual cooperation. The Krillian representative chittered aggressively. "You speak of protection, yet your capabilities could be used to conquer any civilization in the galaxy." "Absolutely true," Stone agreed readily. "Humanity possesses military capabilities that could overwhelm any known galactic civilization. We could conquer, dominate, or destroy any species we chose to target." The casual admission sent waves of shock through the chamber. Stone continued as if he had simply commented on the weather. "However, conquest and domination are fundamentally inefficient uses of advanced military capabilities. Humanity has studied the histories of every galactic empire, and they all follow the same pattern. Conquest leads to rebellion, domination creates resentment, and military rule generates the very threats it seeks to prevent." He deactivated his holographic display and walked to the center of the chamber. "Humanity prefers a different approach. We protect civilizations that share our values, we eliminate threats that endanger innocent life, and we demonstrate overwhelming capability to discourage potential aggressors." The ancient collective representative spoke with the weight of millennia behind his words. "Young species of Sol, your words suggest wisdom, yet your actions demonstrate power that transcends traditional restraints. What assurance do elder civilizations have that humanity will maintain its current benevolent approach?" Stone's expression grew more serious. "Honored Ancient, humanity offers the same assurance that any species provides. We will act according to our nature. Human nature includes competitive drive, protective instincts, and innovative problem-solving capabilities. It also includes strong ethical frameworks that value justice, cooperation, and mutual benefit." He looked around the chamber, making eye contact with representatives from dozens of species. "But I want to be absolutely clear about something. Humanity's benevolent approach is not based on weakness or inability to act aggressively. It is a choice we make because we believe cooperation is more effective than conquest." Ambassador Tilara projected her concern directly into Stone's mind. "Human representative, your species has demonstrated capabilities that fundamentally alter the balance of galactic power. Many council members fear that this change could destabilize the peace that has existed for centuries." Stone received the telepathic message and responded aloud. "Madam Chair, the peace that has existed for centuries was maintained by a balance of military capabilities and mutual deterrence. That balance has indeed changed with humanity's arrival." He smiled one final time, and this expression contained neither warmth nor menace, simply absolute confidence. "The new balance is between civilizations that accept humanity's protection and civilizations that discover what happens when they threaten humanity's interests." As the council session continued, reports continued to arrive from across the galaxy. The news of humanity's defensive victory had reached even the most remote civilizations, and the implications were being analyzed by military strategists and political leaders throughout known space. On Earth, General Okafor stood in her command center watching global communications traffic as humanity's true position in galactic affairs became clear to everyone involved. The careful facade of being a young, primitive species had been abandoned. Humanity now stood revealed as what they had always been, a predator species with capabilities that transcended conventional understanding.